Hello, welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. You are listening to the new streamingnetwork.com. We are home of Going Bold and Going Solo. So we want to thank you so much for joining us. Today's show is Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss, whether it be by widowhood or whether it be by divorce. We talk about all of those areas. But today we're going to be talking about something I think a little bit different than we normally discuss. We're going to be talking about courtless divorce. Have you ever heard of that? Most of the time we think we have to lawyer up, right? We go through that period of time. We're going through a divorce. We don't know what we're doing. And so we feel like we need that security of having possibly an attorney with us. Now, on this show, we've talked a variety of different aspects of it, maybe possibly having a team, various different professionals that can handle different, segments within your divorce. But if you are on the beginning of your divorce, you're right at the beginning stages of your divorce, and you're trying to think about, what do I need to do? The best thing you can do is educate yourself about the system. We say the system's broken, right? We say it's bent. We say all kinds of bad things about the system. The system is what it is and we can't change it. Because when we're going through divorce, all we can do is get to the other side of it. And what we want to do, and you ask today, why are we doing like Going Solo Life After? It's because what we do today, right now, as we're going through divorce, is going to affect us in our future. It's going to affect our finances. It's going to affect our family. It's going to affect us personally, just our mental well-being, right? So how we can handle that today, right now, as we're going through, is going to help us. So today we've got a special one for you, because we're going to talk about the courtless divorce. We're going to talk about this wonderful book here. And we're going to talk about it in great detail. So our guest today is Michael Heath. Those of you that don't know me, I am Cece Shatz. I am the Doyenne of relationship building. I have helped, we say thousands connecting through the Going Solo singles. I am a relationship coach. I am a divorce and dating and a life coach. I really help you through those transitions of life and going through some of those things. You guys can reach me and look at my website. It's goingsolonetwork.com. And then, of course, you can email me, and I love to hear from you at goingsolonetwork@gmail.com. But today we want to get to our guest today, because we want to talk about this courtless divorce. So let's bring him up. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hi, Cece. I'm great.
Good.
Great to be on the show.
I am excited to have you. Michael Heath. Michael Heath, those of you that don't know him, he actually is the author of this wonderful book we're going to be talking about today. And again, I'll bring it up because I think it's a wonderful book. And he's the author of this. He's also the owner and operator of Courtless Divorce. And those of you probably haven't heard of it, so we're going to talk about it in great length today. But you can buy this book right on Amazon.com. So don't hesitate getting it. We're going to talk about it in extensive information here. But just real quickly, we want to give you the website, thecourtlessdivorce.com, courtlessdivorce.com. So, Michael, let's talk a little bit about you. How did you get into writing this book? How did you get into thinking about a courtless divorce?
Well, it's it's very interesting in the sense that I went through my own divorce back in. It was finalized in 2002, and it was a rough and tumble thing. It cost both of us, my wife and I, a lot of money, and we had 3 children, and it was just a very difficult time. And I was like, man, how is it that so many people go through this? And it's the divorce rate, it's not quite 50% in the United States, but it is definitely around 45%. So I said to myself, man, there's a lot of people going through this. So I had a couple of people that mentioned things to me about, mediation, and somebody even mentioned collaborative divorce, which I had no idea about. And this is all, of course, after I had gotten divorced. So I was just curious, and I'm a bit of a voracious reader, and I just went and got some books and started reading about it. And I was amazed that, that there are these options, and that basically most people just don't know about them. Mm-hmm. I mean, when it comes to mediation, which I'm a firm believer, almost to a religion. I just really believe in it. I think it's really, a really good thing. And but when I talk to a lot of people, they'll say, oh, I'll mention about mediation and talk about mediation, and they'll say, oh, well, my cousin did that or my sister did that, and then when I delve in a little bit deeper, I find out that what they usually are talking about is court mandated mediation, which is not bad. It's that's a good thing too. What happens sometimes is they're in litigation and they can't settle on the child custody, for example, and so the judge will say, "Listen, I'm not going to make the decision. I want you two to make the decision. I'm telling you, you have to go to mediation." So there is definitely that, and that's probably what I knew about. And then collaborative divorce, which is a form of mediation. And then there's other ways. There's arbitration. There's do-it-yourself divorce. People can actually do the divorce themselves. I mean, I don't usually recommend it, but in certain circumstances, it does make sense. And then there's also assisted do-it-yourself divorce. If you ever drove down the highway and saw a sign that says, get divorced for $3.99, that's what that is. That's assisted do-it-yourself divorce. That's actually like a paralegal, a company that has paralegals. They'll help you get through the paperwork, because the paperwork can be quite intimidating. So I learned about all these different forms, and I said to myself, if I could get out there and really change the mindset and have the mission of changing the mindset of people where they don't use litigation as their default approach to getting a divorce, where they really do consider these other methods, there's a lot of people that are going to save a lot of money. They're going to save a lot of time. They're going to be in control of their divorce. It's completely private. So there's a lot of good reasons why they can do it. It's not for everyone, and I even in my book give a list of different reasons why somebody would go through litigation, but to just go through divorce litigation because that's all you know is probably not a good thing. If somebody knew about the other methods and said, something, this is not for me, at least they know that. I mean, they can go into litigation knowing that at least that this is the best approach. But a lot of times it's not the best approach.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, what I like about the book, and I want to share it with the audience because I think it's important. Each chapter that's in the book, it's broken down. You probably don't know if you can see it very well, but it's broken down into it. And they're just small chapters in which to read. So you don't feel like you're so overwhelmed and that's another thing. When you start finding out information about divorce, you start to get very overwhelmed. This channel is beautiful for giving information. We have wonderful professionals that are in all walks of the arena of relationships and divorce and dating and whatever you need to know about single, you can find it here on our station and then some, because we even have married people watching because they want to that self-development to keep themselves at the higher vibration and make themselves a good partner for someone. But this is broken down into just segments for you, like getting ready. I mean, when I got divorced, I didn't know about getting ready. Yeah. I didn't understand the broken system. I thought it would protect me. I thought, okay, it's going to protect me. It's going to see what I'm going through, what I've been having to live with, and it's going to protect me. It's going to see the balance. It's going to create that correct balance for me. Nah, didn't happen. And so you have the mediation, arbitration, collaborative divorce, like you said, do it yourself. You cover discovery. That's another thing. When I went in and you had to get all your information together for the discovery and stuff, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he took care of all of that stuff. He took care of all our finances and stuff. I ran the house day to day. I mean, I could tell you day to day stuff. I couldn't tell you beans about our finances or about our retirement funds. I knew we had them, our investments. I knew we had a lot of money that we had been investing and I didn't know anything about that. So understanding discovery and what it is that you need to start gathering, the paperwork you need to start gathering, understanding your rights on gathering that information. A lot of us don't understand that when one party's handling it, then it happens and you don't really have access to the documentation, you're entitled to access to that documentation.
Absolutely.
So it's things like that. And then you talk about children. I think our families are what suffers the most, because how we end up financially in this is going to affect our children's future, and how do we prepare for their futures? How do we prepare for, just every day going to school? Do they need private school? Do they need, certain assistance? Do they need various different things? And so often when we make a decision today, right now, today, with regards to our children, it's really not effective a few years later, right? And so we don't want to be going and bickering and arguing and going back into court again and fighting over certain things. So we want to really start laying the groundwork of today, but also keep ourselves open that we can make changes in the future, that we can work together as a family in the future. So I think the courtless divorce is great, because I think it allows us to start planning our futures together, as a family, being able to continue that family unit, but then also stepping back and saying that is individually, is this working for me? And knowing the other areas that you can do. So Michael, I think it's very cool. I think it's a cool thing that people need to be aware that, if they need a professional, they need to hire somebody, know the right professional that you need to hire,
Oh,
And
absolutely. It's
yeah.
like, I think one thing important, you said it very well, but, like one part that is really important is that if you do go through the mediation process, it really does help the children. And the way it does is that when you go through litigation is very adversarial. It's two sides really trying to beat the other side. I mean, that's what it is. It's a win-lose mentality. Each side is built through discovery, building a case against each other and trying to outdo the other. And so what happens very often is that, when people go to get divorced, of course, they're really unhappy with each other. But what very often happens is that the anger has become even more inflamed during the divorce, because you have a lawyer who's saying, whether it's intentional or not intentional, they're saying, like, we're not going to put up with what they're doing, or look what they're trying to do to us. We're going to do this, and it becomes this kind of this boxing match where the two sides are going at each other. Now, if there's children, if the parents get divorced, they're still in a sense a family. The family, of course, is much different. You have parents living in different living quarters and everything like that. But there's always going to be graduations, there's going to be weddings, there's going to be grandchildren, there's going to be holiday celebrations. And so to have the husband and the wife so angry at each other, it really does affect the family and the children in future cases. What happens very often is that the poor children end up having to be like referees at future events. Like, at my graduation, I got to make sure that I put my dad over here and I got to put my mom over here. But when you go through mediation, because mediation is actually a win-win approach where both sides are actually trying to come up with solutions to issues, not really trying to outdo the other side, but really come to solutions that both sides will be satisfied with. And,
Right.
and because they're working together to come to an end, it usually the divorce usually ends on a much better note, which, I do hear all the time of people who are, divorced, but, they go to their kids' events and, they're fine, they're good. And that's, so when people really try to end their marriage and try to do it the right way, they're serving themselves because it's less expensive and it takes less time and everything. But they're also serving their children because they're going to be, more amicable, and they're still the mother and father of children. Even if they don't have kids, they probably have mutual friends, and they're probably going to get invited to events one day, where, if they have really good friends and, one day their friends' kids get married, there's a good chance that both of them, with different partners, are going to end up going to a wedding together, or going to be going to whatever together. And so it's much better if they do end on a higher note than if they're really very angry at each other. There might even be pets involved where they have to really kind of, they have a dog, and one's going to keep the dog, but the other one's going to have visitation for the dog. So there's a lot of reasons why to end the divorce on a more positive note. And people all the time, I think I mentioned to you a few days ago, people will say to me like, "Oh, my husband and I could never do that. We could never go through mediation or collaborative divorce. We just, we just don't get along. We that's not something we could ever do. We couldn't work through the issues together." But I often say to them, I say, listen, well, think about all the things you have done together. Look, you have you planned a wedding together. You bought a house together. You had children together. You raised those children together. You planned vacations together and went on those vacations together. You may have even run a business together. So there's a lot that you did do together. And it's may make a lot of sense that you stay in control of your divorce rather than just pass it off to lawyers who you hardly even know, and they're going to be making, in a sense, major life decisions on your behalf, when really you could be doing it yourself. And so, like I said, we could talk later about there's definitely reasons why you wouldn't use mediation or collaborative divorce. But in a lot of cases, if people just don't get along, which happens a lot, they can then try the mediation or the collaborative divorce approach.
Right. So now, okay, if we're looking at mediation, one of the things that you can do is if you feel like you need, I think one of the problems we have, I would say we have several problems as we're going through divorce, right? But one of the biggest thing is our emotions, keeping our mental status, keeping our emotions at bay, because our emotions is like a roller coaster ride as we go through. And this is how it works. Usually when you're going through divorce, one party has stepped out of the marriage. They're already kind of moving forward into their new life. The other person's kind of, they're kind of blindsided, and they're trying to figure out how to catch up with that, how to get going on that. And so your emotions are like a roller coaster ride. So if you say to yourself, okay, I think we can go through mediation because we don't have a lot in order to, it's really all assets and debts, right? You're dividing. So kids or whatever, as you start to, work out the parenting plan and things like that. But if you feel like you could do the mediation part, but you're still on that roller coaster ride on emotions, then hire a coach. A coach is one that can help you.
Absolutely.
A lot less expensive than an attorney. An attorney can help you with all the legalese with regards to the actual divorce itself. But a coach knows a lot of those steps that need to take place. And he or she can also help you through the emotional side of it. You can use them as a sounding board. You can get emotional with them, and then they can bring you back down to, what really needs to take place with regards to the actual process of divorce and process of mediation. So that is a money saving tip for you. If you think you're going through something like that, then possibly hire a coach that's going to help you go through. And then you want to screen that coach to make sure it's going to cover what your needs are. If you think you're really going through that roller coaster ride, you need somebody that's really going to help you rein you in on the emotional side of it, then make sure that person's strong in the emotions. If you need someone that is more, financial orientated, if you're really having trouble with getting your finances worked out, knowing what they are, you can have someone that can help you with those. We have coaches that are specialized in finances, and they understand the assets and the debts and having a business and, retirement funds and things like that. So you could hire a coach that would help you with that. So it's really understanding. And I love, Michael, what you've done, because what you're doing is you're making us aware that we have to understand the process of divorce, and unfortunately our knees are weak when we're going through divorce, trying to learn it and capture it all at one time. We're trying to figure that out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that when people, and there's nothing against divorce lawyers. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
lot of many very good ones, and a lot are definitely needed. But I think what happens very often is that when people are just, when they're going through a divorce, like you were just saying, like the emotions, people aren't thinking, clearly. They're just sort of just reacting, and maybe they're just hiring an attorney because a friend said that's what my sister used, who my sister used or whatever, and they kind of jump in and they kind of turn over all their information to this person and let that person then kind of make the decision. Sometimes maybe that's the only way to do it, but I think if people really understand more about divorce, and there are options, like you said, you can hire a divorce coach to kind of help you walk through the process and have somebody that you can kind of lean on, and somebody can really understands uh, really does understand divorce. What most people do is they just get information from their friends, and there's an old saying that a little what is it, a little bit of knowledge can be dangerous. So you have some friends who, they don't really know anything, but they think they know, and they're advising you, and you're listening to them. And if you have a divorce coach, or you have a very good mediator, or even a very good attorney, you have somebody who then really knows what they're talking about. And your friends all mean well, and your relatives mean well, but they're probably not the people to just really get all your good information from. So yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And, mediation's taken a turn, right? It's really become a very important aspect of divorce. And so a lot of attorneys now are, they're certified mediators. They understand the importance of that.
Absolutely.
And they understand that, a lot of it can be solved without even when and don't think that just because you have an attorney and you filed for divorce, because a lot of people file for divorce right away, it doesn't mean that you can't step it back a little bit and still do mediation. You can tell your attorney, listen, I would like to try to go the mediation route. And if they're, a mediator, they might be able to, switch gears and help you a little bit with that. So there's a difference between litigation and mediation, right? And so I want to talk, when we come back from our commercial, I want to talk a little bit about collaborative divorce, because I do not think we talk enough about collaborative divorce and why that's so different than litigation, mediation, and then we have collaborative. So let's talk a little bit more about that, Michael, when we come back. But we do know, and we have to understand that there are, certain, and you had mentioned it too, there's certain times that you have to have an attorney. You must lawyer up. You must do litigation, if any kind of abuse whatsoever. And I want to throw
Absolutely.
that out there to you. Any kind of abuse whatsoever, you need an attorney that specializes in abuse cases. And so you want to vet your attorney to make sure they understand about that facet, because that's very, very important. And that's going to probably cost you some money, because they are very highly specialized. They understand what's going on with the emotions and the mental part with it. And you want to keep yourself and your family safe. So those are
100%.
the areas you want to take care of. So Michael, let's go and take a divorce. But let's take a divorce. Let's take a commercial. And before we go, I want to show everyone your book. Okay, so this is what it looks like here, The Courtless Divorce, and it's by Michael Heath. And you want to go to Amazon.com. And again, it's a very thin book, a very, it's written, very easy read for anyone. So you want to go and get this. And really, if you're going through divorce, you want to know and understand education, knowledge is the key when we're going through this kind of thing. Because something I learned when I was going through mine is I had to step out of the emotional side of it, and I had to start looking at it from a business standpoint, because
Sure.
my ex was all business. He was stepping forward into his new life. He was all business, and I was just hanging on to the emotions. I was just like a
Sure.
whirlwind for me. And I learned very fast that if I didn't get a hold of my emotions and I didn't start thinking about it as a business, I was going to be really suffering after my divorce, which, I don't think I learned it fast enough. So I want people out there to understand that, So you guys are listening to Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss. I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of relationship building. You're listening to newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Solo and Going Bold. And we're on WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network Radio. So we want to share that with you. We're live on Roku. We want to thank all of our wonderful listeners there. We appreciate you so much. Last year we closed out at 6 million. I mean, I can't thank you enough for listening to us on that platform. And of course, we're on Vaughn TV, Kick TV. We're on all of the podcasting platforms. And, we're on Facebook and, of course, our favorite YouTube, right? So we want to thank you all for listening to us today. We are talking about the Courtless Divorce with Michael Heath, and we're going to be right back. Well, welcome back. We are so excited to have you back here on Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss. I am Cece Shatz, the Doyenne of Relationship Building. You're listening to newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Bold and Going Solo, and WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, our radio station. So we are talking with Michael Heath today. He has written a wonderful book. It's called The Courtless Divorce. He also has a terrific website, The Courtless Divorce. And so we want you guys to check that out. But first part of the show, if you missed it, we hope that you'll go back and listen to it because it's very important. We're talking about divorce, kind of like the beginning stages, so you can educate yourself and learn a little bit about the different aspects with regards to divorce and understanding that maybe you need to think about the professionals that you are hiring. We have wonderful professionals out there. We have wonderful attorneys. We have, terrific coaches. There's a slew of different individuals that are professional in their field with regards to helping those going through divorce. So we don't want to say that there's anything that, is negative about it whatsoever. We just want you to be able to, capture and understand what you're going through, help you with that emotional roller coaster ride, and save some money along the way. Why are we spending so much money on the system that we could actually save some money? And I think, Michael Heath, you've kind of hit the nail on the head. Sometimes we can go through a courtless divorce, and that doesn't mean we doesn't necessarily hire an attorney to still help us go through some things. Maybe we do mediation. Maybe there's, documentation we need help with. Attorneys will be, a lot of attorneys, good attorneys will be happy to not do litigation, not go through the fighting and all of that, if they can help you with some of the other aspects of it, because many of them are mediators themselves. So, Michael, we talked about, a lot of these different aspects, but let's talk about collaborative, because a lot of people have no idea what that is. So share with us about collaborative divorce.
Well, let me just preface by saying that, like, the mediation that I use, the type of mediation I advocate for, which I think all mediation is very good, but it's really what I call courtless mediation. Some people call it early stage mediation or voluntary mediation. And that's the mediation where you actually go and you get a mediator and you mediate the divorce prior to ever filing with the court. Okay, so you would actually be doing it prior to ever doing that. And so what you're actually trying to do when in this type of mediation is end up with a divorce agreement prior to even going to court. So you would actually literally show up to court with the divorce agreement. So everything's already been done. Now, as you've said before, you can, of course, hire an attorney and start litigating, and then maybe look into going into mediation, and that is definitely possible. I don't usually recommend it, only because once you get into litigation, usually the train leaves the station, and it's sort of hard to reverse it. So, but you're right that a lot of attorneys are mediators, and they're very, very good, and they do it for a few reasons. One, a lot of people want mediation. Another reason is a lot of lawyers are just almost to save their souls. They'd rather people go through mediation than to litigate every single case that's out there. So mediation is a solutions-based approach where you have the husband and the wife and the mediator, and they're taking each issue and working together to come to solutions. Now, collaborative divorce is very similar to that. And so like in mediation, I call three-way meetings. So you have the husband, the wife, and you have a mediator. In collaborative divorce, you have a husband and a wife, and both spouses have a collaborative attorney. Now, the collaborative attorneys they're specially trained. They're not just, they're not just divorce lawyers that they say, oh yeah, I'm going to do collaborative divorce this time. They actually have to go through a special training, which is the same type of training that a mediator would go through, where it's a very solutions-based approach. They actually sign an agreement before the sessions start. All four parties sign an agreement that basically states that if the negotiations break down, that neither attorney will represent the spouses in litigation. And the reason they do that is so that there's an incentive for both collaborative divorce attorneys to bring it to a successful conclusion. The law profession does not want collaborative divorce attorneys having in the back of their mind, well, let's try this collaborative divorce thing, and if it doesn't work out, then we'll just litigate the case. That both attorneys know that if this doesn't work out, they're out of it. They're done. They're no longer going to represent each spouse. Now, the collaborative attorneys are both sort of like mediators, so they are not advocating for their clients like a litigator will. Litigators, they're sort of like bulldogs. They're on their client's side, and all they want to do is see that their client is winning, and that their client is going to win everything. That's what they're pushing for. Where collaborative attorneys, just like the title says, they're collaborating. All four are working together to come to solutions on each issue. Now, many people out there in the audience might be saying, well, if you're hiring these collaborative attorneys, what's the big benefit? Well, there is a benefit. One is that you're all working together, so the sessions are much more amicable. Mm-hmm. Two, since both sides are actually working together, the discovery is informal. It's not like each side is trying to build a case against each other, and you have paralegals trying to get all this duplication where each side is trying to get all this information together to try to beat the other side. Actually, what each side is doing, the husband and wife are actually getting the information together and bringing it together and saying, listen, this is our this is our investments, and this is our bank statement, and this is how much our house is worth, and we're working together. And the other thing about collaborative divorce is that sometimes you have to bring an expert in. Let's say the husband owns a business, and that expert has to evaluate the business. If it was litigation, maybe both sides would hire an expert, and the husband's expert would say the business is worth $150,000, and the wife's expert's going to say it's only worth $100,000, and I can prove it. It's what they're going to do is they're going to bring in one expert that they're sharing, and they're going to come together. So there's a lot of ways of saving money. So people might be saying, well, why would anybody want to have a collaborative attorney? It sounds like you're better off just with mediation. But, there's a lot of people out there that they just like having somebody with them. They just like having, somebody there in real time. And these lawyers, they know the law. So say you're going through the issues and there's a question about, where the process is going. And, so maybe the wife is going to say, listen, I want to talk to my attorney. And so they go into another room and they sit down and in real time, they're getting that information. Where if they're using a mediator, maybe they have a consulting attorney that they hire, which is a good idea. But, they're not going to have that person right there. So with the collaborative attorney, you have that person there. And also, sometimes there's people who feel that there's an imbalance of power. Maybe the wife is very strong-willed and she's very, very tough, and the husband is sort of, a Casper milquetoast sort of, not very strong personality. And so maybe the husband feels, something, I can negotiate with my wife, but she's always going to be, she's a much better negotiator than me. And even though mediators will seek out we'll see imbalances of power and try to equalize things. Sometimes just having somebody sitting right next to you really helps a lot. So, granted, collaborative divorce will be more expensive than mediation because you're hiring two collaborative attorneys to be in the room there, but it's definitely should be a lot less expensive than, litigation, which is, which just keeps going and going, and all this extra discovery and formal discovery. Right. So, so it's a really great thing, but it's a lot of people don't know about it.
Right. And there's a lot of aspects as you're going through that you might very well agree on. Like when you're talking about mediation or collaboration, there might be some areas that you've actually agreed on. They're great. You have no trouble with. And then there's just a few that's outstanding that maybe you don't agree on. And so then you can home in on those things and get those things knocked out. And so that way you get it. But again, if you go litigation, it's all or nothing. That's usually what it is. And then nobody wins. I mean, nobody wins in litigation. It's a very painful way to get divorced. And so I just hope that those out there are listening and that they understand it. So tell us a little bit about your website, because I want to talk about that a little bit before we close out, because we're getting close to the time. So when we go into the Courtless divorce.com, what are we seeing there?
Well, the courtlessdivorce.com, I love to write, and I'm a writer, so I have a lot of blog posts on the website. In fact, I post every week. And I put the blog posts certainly on my website, but also on Facebook. I also put them on LinkedIn. So there's, some people might be, like I have blogs about almost everything. Divorce during Thanksgiving, and just sort of there's very esoteric stuff. But it's people will get together for the holidays, and how do you approach it, or if you're not going to be with your family, what should you do during that time? So I write about a lot of different things. So I think there's a lot of good blog posts on there. I do have a directory, so we have a lot of good collaborative divorce attorneys and mediators there. And I also tell people that if you have if you're thinking about getting going into mediation or collaborative divorce, and you do want to speak to someone, and you need some help, just send me a message, send me an email, and I'm glad to help you out. And I don't really like to make recommendations, because I just don't like to think that like I know who you're gonna like, but I can really suggest certain mediators and collaborative divorce attorneys that you can actually speak with, and then see if that's the best person for you. So, and then I do have some other articles on there, and I do sell my book also on the website. They can buy it on the website as a print book or as a downloadable PDF, and then on Amazon as a print book or as an ebook. So that's what I have there. And I thank you for all the nice things you said about my book. The book was really written intended for a layperson, just somebody who doesn't know, to make it an easy read. I'm not really, trying to turn anybody into a mediator or a lawyer or a collaborative divorce attorney. I just really try to educate people on, what these things are, and maybe it's for them and maybe it's not for them. I also list in there, like we talked before, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to have to get a matrimonial attorney. If you have domestic abuse in your marriage, you got to get a litigator. Mediation is not going to work. You got to get a litigator, and you're probably going to end up, that litigator is probably going to tell you got to get the authorities involved, because you could, who knows, you could get, you could get hurt, or you could even get killed. So I mean, it's that would be one reason. Another one, if there's severe drug abuse or alcohol abuse, and that's another thing, because even if you have a husband who's a bad drinker, and you think you can mediate it, that he probably can't represent himself well, so it's just like he's going to need an attorney. So if he needs an attorney, you're going to need an attorney. If there's a threat of absconding with the children, you got to get an attorney as quickly as possible. And it's rare, but you do hear of these cases where, the husband goes and takes the kids to a foreign country to visit relatives and never comes back. So that would be another reason. If one of the spouses is just wasting all the money and purposely just blowing all the money, what we call dissipation of assets, then you need to get an attorney so that maybe the judge can really freeze the assets so that nothing's it doesn't go any further. Because once the money's gone, usually a judge can't retrieve it. I mean, even the.
Oh, I think we lost him. Well, we're going to have to close out the show anyhow. Somehow we lost him. So what a wonderful guy. But let me, again, share his book. This is his book. You can go to Amazon or go to his website, which is courtlessdivorce.com. We want to thank you so much for joining us here today. We were talking with Michael Heath, and he is the owner and the author and the operator of the Courtless Divorce. So just go to courtlessdivorce.com. So everyone, I am Cece Shatz. I'm the Doyenne of relationship building. I am a divorce, dating, and a life coach. I hope that you enjoyed today's show, Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss. And we're on newstreamingnetwork.com, home of Going Bold and Going Solo. You guys can find us on our radio station, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network. Everything is internet-based. We want to thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.